The small metallic card slipped from my clutch and clattered onto the marble floor of the Grand Bellamy Hotel ballroom, spinning once before settling face up under the harsh chandelier light. I watched, frozen, as Brandon's boss, Robert Sterling, bent down to retrieve it. The moment his eyes focused on the name embossed in gold lettering, his face went pale. His hand trembled as he held my VIP access badge, the one that granted me entry to any Montgomery Enterprise property worldwide, the one that identified me as Simone Montgomery, heir to a billion-dollar empire. The same empire his company had been desperately trying to secure investment from for the past 6 months. "Ma'am," Robert whispered, his voice cracking slightly as he handed the badge back to me with both hands, as if it were made of glass. "Does your husband know who you are?" I took the badge from him, my fingers steady even as my heart began to race. The question hung in the air between us, heavy with implications I was only beginning to understand. Behind us, the company holiday party continued in full swing. Laughter echoed off the high ceilings. The string quartet played something classical and forgettable. Servers in crisp white shirts circulated with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres. Brandon stood across the room, deep in conversation with several colleagues, his tie loosened and his smile easy. He had no idea that in this single moment, his entire world was about to shift on its axis. "Thank you," I said quietly to Robert, tucking the badge back into my red clutch, my emerald dress catching the light as I moved. I had chosen this dress carefully as I chose everything in my life. The color reminded me of power, of growth, of the forests on my family's estate upstate. "That's an interesting question, Robert. May I call you Robert?" "Of course, Mrs. Barnes. I mean Miss Montgomery. I mean..." He stopped, confused, his corporate polish cracking under the weight of his realization. "Simone is fine," I said, my voice calm despite the storm beginning to brew inside me. "And to answer your question, my husband knows me as Simone Barnes. That's the name I've used for the past 5 years. The name I took when I married him." Robert's confusion deepened. "But the Montgomery family, you're?" "I'm the eldest daughter, yes. I manage the Eastern investment portfolio. I sit on the board. I control 42% of company voting shares." I said this matter-of-factly, watching his face cycle through disbelief, shock, and then calculation. "I prefer to keep my professional life and personal life separate. Brandon knows I work in finance consulting. He doesn't know the scope of my family's wealth or my role in it." "Does he know you could buy his entire department with your quarterly dividend check?" Robert asked, then immediately looked horrified that he'd said it out loud. I smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "No, Robert, he doesn't. And I'd appreciate if this stayed between us for now." Robert nodded vigorously, clearly relieved to be dismissed from this increasingly uncomfortable conversation. He backed away, still looking shell-shocked, and disappeared into the crowd. I stood there for a moment, my mind racing. The badge falling had been an accident, a simple moment of carelessness when I'd pulled out my phone. But Robert's reaction, the fear in his eyes, the way he'd looked at me like I was a bomb about to explode in his company's carefully constructed plans, that told me something was very wrong. I made my way through the crowd, nodding and smiling at Brandon's colleagues, playing the role I'd perfected over 5 years of marriage. The supportive wife. The quiet presence at company events. The woman who worked a modest consulting job and lived in a nice but unspectacular house in the suburbs. No one here knew that I owned a penthouse in the city, a brownstone in Brooklyn, and a villa in the south of France. No one knew that the consulting I did involved moving millions of dollars across international markets before breakfast. Brandon saw me approaching and excused himself from his conversation. He was handsome in his navy suit, his smile warm as he pulled me close. "There's my beautiful wife," he said, pressing a kiss to my temple. "Having fun." "It's lovely," I lied smoothly. 5 years of practice had made me an excellent liar, though I'd never thought of it that way until this moment. Robert seemed a bit flustered just now. Oh, he's always stressed this time of year. Annual reviews coming up, budget planning, the usual corporate nightmare. Brandon's phone buzzed in his pocket. He pulled it out, glanced at the screen, and his smile faltered for just a fraction of a second. "Excuse me, honey. Work email. I should check this." He stepped away, his fingers moving quickly across the screen. I watched him, really watched him, and saw things I'd been too trusting to notice before. The way his shoulders tensed. The small smile playing at his lips as he typed. The quick glance around to see if anyone was watching before he slipped his phone back into his pocket. Something cold settled in my stomach. I'd always believed in giving people privacy. Brandon and I didn't check each other's phones. We trusted each other. Or at least I trusted him. But Robert's question echoed in my mind. Does your husband know who you are? Why would that matter unless there was something else going on? Unless Brandon knowing my real identity would change something important? The party continued around me. Brandon returned to my side, slipping his arm around my waist. Ready to head out soon? He asked. I'm exhausted. Sure, I said. Just let me use the restroom first. I made my way to the ladies' room, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Inside, I locked myself in a stall and pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking now, the adrenaline finally catching up to me. I opened the family messaging app, the encrypted one that only Montgomery family members had access to, and typed a message to my cousin Patricia. Something's wrong. Need to talk tomorrow. Private. Her response came within seconds. I'm here. Whatever you need. I closed the app and stood there, breathing slowly, trying to center myself. In the mirror above the sink, I studied my reflection. 32 years old. Beautiful, my mother always said, though I'd never quite believed it. My dark skin glowed in the bathroom's soft lighting. My natural hair was styled in an elegant updo. I was wearing diamond earrings that cost more than most people's cars. And I was married to a man who might be hiding something from me. When I returned to the ballroom, Brandon was waiting by the coat check. We drove home in comfortable silence, his hand resting on my thigh as he navigated the familiar streets. Our house was a modest 3-bedroom colonial in a quiet neighborhood. Brandon loved this house. He'd been so proud when we bought it, talking about how far he'd come from his working-class roots. What he didn't know was that I'd paid for it in cash through a trust, making it look like we'd gotten an incredible mortgage rate. Inside, Brandon loosened his tie and headed for the bedroom. I'm going to take a quick shower, he called out. Long day. Go ahead, I replied, settling onto the couch. I'll be up in a minute. I heard the water start running upstairs. And then I saw it. Brandon's phone sitting on the kitchen counter where he'd set it down when we walked in. He always took it everywhere. Always. The fact that he'd left it behind felt significant, though I couldn't say why. I stared at that phone for a long moment. I'd never invaded his privacy before. Never felt the need. But something was pulling me toward it, some instinct I couldn't ignore. Robert's reaction to my badge. Brandon's tension when his phone buzzed. The way he'd smiled at that text message. I picked up the phone. I knew his passcode. We'd never kept those secret from each other. My fingers trembled as I typed it in. The screen lit up, and my entire world collapsed. Text messages filled the screen, a conversation with someone named Natalie. The preview text was enough to make my blood run cold. Can't wait to see you tomorrow. Brandon, leaving her is the right thing to do. We both know you deserve better than. I opened the full conversation. Message after message. Plans to meet up. Sweet words. Promises. Complaints about me, about our marriage, about how boring his life was. Photos. Intimate photos. Evidence of an affair that had been going on for months while I played the devoted wife. My hands stopped shaking. A strange calm settled over me, the kind of calm that comes when everything suddenly makes perfect, horrible sense. Robert had been afraid because he knew. The whole office probably knew. Everyone but me. I heard the shower shut off upstairs. Brandon would be down any moment. I carefully placed his phone exactly where I'd found it and walked calmly to my purse. I pulled out my VIP badge, the one that represented everything I really was, everything I'd hidden to try to have a normal life, a normal marriage. Does your husband know who you are? Robert had asked. No, I thought, photographing several of Brandon's text messages with my own phone before closing out of his. But he's about to find out exactly who he's been betraying. And when he did, I was going to make sure he understood the full magnitude of his mistake. Because I wasn't just Simone Barnes, the quiet consultant wife he'd been cheating on. I was Simone Montgomery. And I had the power to take away everything he'd ever worked for. The only question was how thorough I wanted to be with his destruction. I didn't sleep that night. I lay beside Brandon in our bed, listening to him breathe deeply, occasionally mumbling in his sleep. Every time he shifted closer to me, my skin crawled. How many times had he touched me after being with her? How many lies had he told while looking into my eyes? But beneath the hurt and betrayal, something else was growing. Something cold and calculating, something that had always been part of me but that I'd suppressed for the sake of this normal life I'd tried to build. I was a Montgomery. And Montgomerys didn't just survive. We conquered. As dawn broke through the bedroom curtains, I slipped out of bed and went to my home office. Brandon thought this was where I did my consulting work, reviewing portfolios for small clients. He had no idea that the encrypted laptop I kept in the locked drawer connected directly to Montgomery Enterprises' central servers. He never asked to see it. Never showed interest in my work at all, actually. That should have been a red flag years ago. I opened the laptop and pulled up my secure family line. Patricia answered on the first ring, her face appearing on the video call despite the early hour. She was already dressed for the day in a royal blue power suit, her short natural hair perfectly styled. Patricia ran the Montgomery family's legal division and had a mind like a steel trap. "What happened?" she asked immediately. "Brandon's having an affair," I said, my voice steady. "Has been for at least 8 months based on the texts I saw." Patricia's expression hardened. "That absolute fool. Does he have any idea who you are?" "No. And that's going to be his downfall." I pulled up the photos I'd taken of Brandon's text messages and sent them to Patricia's secure server. "I need you to prepare divorce papers. Ironclad. And I need Jerome on standby." Jerome Mitchell was the Montgomery family's personal attorney, a man who'd never lost a case and who had enough connections to move mountains when necessary. "Consider it done," Patricia said. "But Simone, are you sure? We can make this quiet. A simple divorce, a generous settlement to keep him silent about the family, and you move on." "No," I said firmly. "He doesn't get to betray me and walk away comfortable. He doesn't get to ride off into the sunset with his mistress while I hide in the shadows again. I'm done hiding." Patricia studied me for a moment, then nodded. "Okay, tell me everything." I spent the next hour walking her through the details. The company party, the fallen badge, Robert's reaction, the text messages, Natalie's name, everything I knew and everything I suspected. "Robert Sterling," Patricia mused. "He's the CEO of TechCore Solutions, right? The company that's been trying to get a meeting with our investment board for 6 months." "Exactly. And now he knows who I am. Which means he knows that continuing to employ the man who's cheating on a Montgomery heir is a spectacularly bad business decision." "You're going to destroy his career," Patricia said. It wasn't a question. "I'm going to destroy everything he values," I corrected. "His job, his reputation, his financial security, all of it, but legally, cleanly, so thoroughly that he can never recover." Patricia smiled, and it was a smile I recognized. The Montgomery smile. The one that had built an empire over 3 generations. "I'll have the paperwork ready by tomorrow." "What about the mistress?" "Natalie. I need to know everything about her. Where she works, her position, her history. Everything." "I'll have a full report by this afternoon," Patricia promised. "What are you going to tell Brandon in the meantime?" "Nothing. Let him think everything is normal. Let him keep texting his girlfriend, planning his future without me. The longer he's comfortable, the more evidence he'll create." After I ended the call with Patricia, I sat back in my chair and let myself feel the full weight of what I was doing. This wasn't just about revenge, though that was certainly part of it. This was about reclaiming myself. For 5 years I played small. I'd pretended to be someone I wasn't because I wanted to be loved for myself, not for my money. I'd wanted a partner who valued me as a person, not as a walking bank account. What I'd gotten instead was a man who cheated on me with a coworker while spending the money I gave him on another woman. The irony would have been funny if it weren't so painful. My phone buzzed with an incoming text. "Brandon, awake now and probably wondering where I was. Morning beautiful. Making coffee. Want some?" I stared at the message, at the casual affection in those words, and felt nothing but contempt. But I typed back a cheerful response. "Yes, please. Be there in a minute." I closed the laptop, locked it away, and went downstairs to play the role of loving wife one more time. Brandon was humming in the kitchen, already dressed for work in gray slacks and a light blue shirt. He handed me a mug of coffee, kissed my forehead, and smiled. "Sleep well." "Like a baby," I lied. "Good. Hey, I might be late tonight. End of quarter reports are due, and you know how Robert gets when we're behind schedule." "No problem. I have some client calls anyway." More lies stacking on top of each other. But mine served a purpose. His were just betrayal dressed up as consideration. After Brandon left for work, I spent the morning on legitimate business calls. Running the Eastern investment portfolio for Montgomery Enterprises wasn't a small job. We managed over $3 billion in assets across real estate, tech startups, pharmaceutical companies, and green energy projects. My decisions could make or break companies. Careers rose and fell based on whether I decided Montgomery money was worth the risk. It was real power. And I was very good at wielding it. Around noon, Patricia sent through the full report on Natalie Chin. Wait, Chin was one of the restricted names. Let me change that. Around noon, Patricia sent through the full report on Natalie Green. 28 years old. Marketing coordinator at TechCore Solutions. Bachelor's degree from a state school. Decent performance reviews but nothing exceptional. Single. Rented a small apartment across town. Active on social media, where she posted carefully curated photos of her life, including several recent ones at restaurants and hotels I recognized from Brandon's credit card statements. Credit card statements that I paid because everything was in my name. The fury rose again, hot and fierce. I pushed it down. Emotion was useful but only if controlled. Right now I needed clarity. I called Jerome Mitchell. Simone, he greeted me, his deep voice warm with familiarity. Jerome had been handling Montgomery family legal matters since before I was born. He taught me how to read contracts when I was 15. He'd celebrated at my wedding, though he'd insisted I sign a prenuptial agreement first. Patricia filled me in. I'm sorry this is happening. Don't be sorry. Just be thorough. I sent him the file on Natalie and the photos of Brandon's texts. I want to know every legal angle. What he's entitled to in the divorce, what protections we have, and what pressure points we can use. Already on it. The prenup is solid. He gets nothing from your family money or assets. The house is in a trust, so it's yours. The cars are leased through Montgomery Corporate Holdings. He has no claim on your investments or inheritance. Basically, he walks away with whatever he brought into the marriage, which according to my records was about $15,000 in savings and a 10-year-old sedan. And if he tries to fight it? Let him. We have documentation of his affair. We have financial records showing you've supported the household. We have everything we need to make this quick and clean. He can hire the best lawyer in the city and he'll still lose. I felt a grim satisfaction at that. Good. Prepare everything. I want to move fast once I decide to pull the trigger. Understood. And Simone? For what it's worth, you deserve better than this. After the call, I sat in my office surrounded by the trappings of the modest life I'd built. Simple furniture. Tasteful but inexpensive art. Nothing that would make Brandon suspicious. Nothing that would reveal the truth of who I was. I thought about the first time I met him, 5 years ago at a charity gala. I'd been there representing the family, writing checks and shaking hands. He'd been there as a +1 to a colleague, wide-eyed at the opulence. We talked by the bar about nothing important. He made me laugh. He'd seemed genuine, unpretentious, refreshingly normal after years of dealing with people who wanted something from me. I'd fallen for him because he didn't know who I was. Because he couldn't want my money or my connections. Because for once I could just be Simone, not Simone Montgomery of the Montgomery fortune. What a beautiful, naive fantasy that had been. My phone rang. A number I didn't recognize, but the area code told me it was local. Hello? Mrs. Barnes? This is Robert Sterling. From TechCore. I was wondering if we could speak privately. Perhaps lunch today? I smiled. The pieces were already starting to fall into place. Of course, Robert. I'd love to. Robert chose a quiet restaurant in the financial district, the kind of place where business people made deals over expensive steaks and wine. I arrived first, dressed in a green dress that cost more than most people's monthly rent, though Robert wouldn't know that. I'd learned to dress wealth down, to hide designer labels and custom tailoring behind classic styles that could pass for off the rack. Robert arrived looking nervous, his tie slightly askew. He slid into the booth across from me and ordered a scotch before even looking at the menu. Not a good sign for him. Thank you for meeting me, he started. I've been up all night trying to figure out how to approach this. Let me save you some anxiety, Robert. You want to know if Montgomery Enterprises will still consider investing in TechCore despite the complication of my personal connection to one of your employees. He blinked. You're very direct. I find it saves time. I sipped my water, watching him carefully. Here's what I know. Your company has been trying to secure Montgomery investment for 6 months. You need the capital to expand your AI division. Without it, your competitors will leave you behind. You've mortgaged the company's future on this deal going through. That's accurate, Robert admitted. And now you've discovered that the wife of one of your mid-level managers is actually the person who controls whether that investment happens. Also accurate. So you're here to do damage control. You want to know what I want. Whether I'm vindictive enough to tank your company over a personal matter. I leaned back. Am I close? Robert finished his scotch in one swallow. I'm here to tell you that if you want Brandon fired, he's fired. Today. Right now. Whatever you need. I appreciate the offer, Robert. But no. Not yet. I watched confusion cross his face. I don't want Brandon fired today. I want to handle this my way on my timeline. What I need from you is information. Information. How long has the affair been going on? Who knows about it? Does Natalie Green have any idea who I really am? Robert seemed relieved to have concrete questions to answer. I don't know exactly when it started. I first heard rumors maybe 6 months ago. People talk, you know. Someone saw them having lunch together too often. Then dinner. The marketing department has an office near Brandon's floor. They'd meet in the parking garage during lunch breaks. My stomach turned, but I kept my face neutral. Who knows? A lot of people suspect. Probably a dozen employees have mentioned it to me or to HR over the past few months. We were preparing to have a conversation with Brandon about workplace relationships when last night happened. And Natalie? She has no idea who you are. Brandon's always talked about his wife as a consultant, someone who works from home. Low-key. He's made you sound very average. No offense. None taken. That was the point. I considered this. A dozen people knew. HR knew. Robert knew. All watching Brandon make a fool of himself and of me. The humiliation of that burned. Here's what's going to happen, Robert. I'm going to file for divorce in the next few days. When I do, Brandon is going to become a liability to your company. Not because of the affair itself, but because he'll be unstable, distracted, and potentially vindictive. I understand. At that point, you'll conduct a thorough review of his performance. I suspect you'll find grounds for termination that have nothing to do with me or with his personal life. Late projects. Missed deadlines. Poor team management. Whatever you find. Robert nodded slowly. That's doable. As for Natalie Green, I want a full review of her conduct as well. Any fraternization policy violations. Any work performance issues. Anything that would justify appropriate HR action. Also doable. Good. And Robert? Once this is handled appropriately and professionally, Montgomery Enterprises will be very interested in discussing that AI division investment. I've reviewed your proposals. They're solid. You deserve the capital. The relief on Robert's face was almost comical. Thank you. I don't know what else to say. Don't thank me yet. This is business, Robert. I'm keeping business and personal separate just like I always have. But understand this. If you or anyone at your company warns Brandon or Natalie about what's coming, if you give them any heads up that allows them to prepare, the deal is off. Montgomery Enterprises has a long memory. Of course. Absolutely. You have my word. After lunch, I drove to my penthouse. Brandon didn't know about this place. It was in my name only, purchased through a shell corporation years before we met. 23rd floor, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, and enough space to actually breathe. This is where I'd move when I left. This is where I'd start over. Patricia was waiting for me there, having used the spare key I'd given her years ago. She'd brought files and her laptop, setting up a war room on my dining table. Jerome sent over the preliminary divorce papers, she said, handing me a thick folder. Everything's in order. We can file whenever you're ready. Good. What about the private investigator? I hired the best. Former FBI, completely discreet. He'll document everything. Photos, locations, times. Build a case so solid that Brandon can't even think about fighting it. I flipped through the divorce papers, scanning the legalese. It was all there. Irreconcilable differences. Division of assets. The prenuptial agreement attached as an exhibit. How long until we have enough evidence? He's starting surveillance today. Give him a week, maybe 2. He'll follow both Brandon and Natalie, document their meetings, get everything we need. 2 weeks. I could do 2 more weeks of pretending. 2 more weeks of lying next to a man who'd betrayed me. If it meant the evidence was ironclad, I could do it. Patricia pulled out another file. I also looked into Brandon's finances like you asked. It's interesting. He's been spending a lot more than his salary should allow. Fancy dinners. Hotel rooms. Gifts. All on credit cards. Credit cards I pay off every month, I said bitterly. Exactly. He's been using your money to fund his affair. That's going to look great in divorce court. What about Natalie? What's her financial situation? She's living paycheck to paycheck. Decent salary, but she's got student loans, credit card debt, and she likes to spend on clothes and travel. I guess she's attracted to Brandon partly because he seems to have money to throw around. She has no idea he's broke. The picture was becoming clearer. Brandon had been playing the successful husband at home while playing the generous boyfriend at work. All with my money. All while planning to leave me for someone who thought he was a catch. They deserve each other, Patricia muttered, echoing my thoughts. Over the next week, I fell into a strange routine. During the day, I was Simone Montgomery, moving millions of dollars, making business decisions, planning my future. At night, I was Simone Barnes, making dinner, watching television with Brandon, pretending everything was fine. The investigators' reports came in daily. Photos of Brandon and Natalie having coffee. Meeting in parking garages. One particularly damning photo showed them checking into a hotel during Brandon's supposed late night at the office. I looked at each photo clinically, cataloging evidence. The pain was still there, but I'd locked it away in a box I'd open later when this was all over. On day 10, Brandon came home excited. "Great news," he said, pulling me into a hug I didn't return. "Robert's talking about a possible promotion. Junior VP of Operations. It would mean a huge raise." "That's wonderful," I said automatically. "When would this happen?" "He's not sure yet. Maybe in a few months, after the end-of-year reviews." Brandon was practically glowing. "This could change everything for us, Simone. We could get a bigger house, take real vacations. Finally live the life we deserve. The life we deserve." As if he had any idea what I'd been giving up to maintain his fantasy. "Sounds perfect," I lied. That night, while Brandon slept, I texted Patricia. "Ready to move. File the papers." Her response came immediately. "Monday morning. It's done. 3 more days. I just had to make it 3 more days." On Sunday night, I packed a bag while Brandon was out getting groceries. Just enough clothes and toiletries to get by. Everything else I needed was already at the penthouse. I hid the bag in my car trunk, ready for a quick exit. Monday morning arrived cold and gray. Brandon kissed me goodbye like always, straightening his green tie and grabbing his travel mug of coffee. "Love you," he called out as he left. I didn't respond. 2 hours later, a courier would deliver divorce papers to his office. By afternoon, his whole world would be on fire. And I would be free. I spent Monday morning at my penthouse, unable to stay in the house I'd shared with Brandon. Every corner held memories that now felt contaminated by his lies. Patricia sat with me, her laptop open, monitoring the situation remotely. "Courier confirmed delivery at 10:47 a.m., she said. Papers were handed directly to Brandon at his desk. I imagined the moment. Brandon at his desk, probably texting Natalie, planning their next secret meeting. The courier arriving. His confusion as he signed for the thick envelope. The moment he opened it and saw the word, divorce, in bold letters at the top of the first page. My phone started ringing at 10:52 a.m. "Brandon." I let it go to voicemail. It rang again. And again. And again. By noon, I had 17 missed calls and 9 voicemail messages. I listened to them in chronological order, hearing his emotional journey compressed into audio clips. The first message was confusion. "Simone, I just got some papers at work. This has to be a mistake. Call me back." The second was denial. "This isn't funny. If this is some kind of joke, it's not okay. Call me." The third was panic. "Please pick up. We need to talk about this. Whatever's wrong, we can fix it." By message 9, anger had crept in. "You can't just do this. You can't just throw away 5 years. At least have the guts to talk to me." I deleted them all. The text messages were similar. A progression from confusion to panic to anger. I read them all but responded to none. Patricia fielded a call from Brandon's hastily hired attorney, a local guy who handled simple divorces and probably had no idea what he was walking into. "He wants to negotiate," Patricia told me after hanging up. "He's asking for a mediation meeting." "No. Everything goes through lawyers. I don't want to see him or talk to him." That's what I told him. He pushed back pretty hard. Said you owe Brandon a face-to-face conversation. "I owe him nothing," I said coldly. He had 8 months to have honest conversations with me. He chose to spend that time with Natalie instead. At 3 p.m., Brandon showed up at the house. I knew because the doorbell camera sent an alert to my phone. I watched him ring the bell repeatedly, then try his key. But I'd already had the locks changed that morning. Another service arranged through the Montgomery network of contacts. He rang the bell 17 times. Then he started banging on the door. Then he sat on the front steps, his head in his hands, for almost an hour. I felt nothing watching him. At 5:30 p.m., Patricia got another call from his lawyer. "He's threatening to contest the divorce. Says the prenup is invalid because you didn't fully disclose your assets." I laughed, a harsh sound. He didn't ask. He never asked about my family, my finances, my life before him. He was too busy playing the big man, the provider. Let him contest it. Every piece of paper we have is documented and legal. Jerome's never lost a case for a reason. That's what I told him. He backed down pretty quickly. At 7 p.m. my phone rang again. Not Brandon this time. Natalie. I stared at the screen, surprised. How did she get my number? Then I realized Brandon must have given it to her, probably hoping she could somehow plead his case. I answered. Hello? Mrs. Barnes? Her voice was younger than I expected. Nervous. This is Natalie. Natalie Green. I work with Brandon. I know who you are, Natalie. My voice was ice. I wanted to call and say I'm sorry. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. You didn't mean to sleep with my husband for 8 months? Silence on the other end. Then, Brandon said you two were having problems. He said the marriage was basically over. And you believed him. It wasn't a question. He was so unhappy. He said you didn't understand him. That you didn't appreciate him. Natalie, let me tell you something about Brandon. He lied to you just like he lied to me. But here's the difference between us. You thought you were getting a successful, generous man. I actually know who he is. And soon you will too. What does that mean? It means that in about a week Brandon's going to lose his job. He's going to lose this house. He's going to lose everything he's been using to impress you. And then you'll see what I've been dealing with. A man who's all performance, no substance. You can't do that. You can't ruin his career because you're angry. Oh, Natalie. I'm not ruining anything. Brandon did that himself. I'm just making sure everyone sees the truth. I paused. Tell me something. Did he ever mention that he was spending my money on you? That every fancy dinner, every hotel room, every gift was paid for by his wife? Another silence. Longer this time. I didn't think so. You might want to ask him about that. Good luck. I hung up. At 8:30 p.m. Brandon was back at the house. This time he didn't ring the bell. He sat in his car in the driveway and I watched through the camera as he broke down crying. His shoulders shook. He pressed his forehead against the steering wheel. He looked genuinely devastated. Good. At 9 p.m. he finally left. At 10 p.m. my phone rang one more time. This time I answered. Hello, Brandon. Simone. Thank God. Please, we need to talk. No, we don't. How can you do this? How can you just throw away everything we had? Everything we had? Brandon, we didn't have anything real. I had an illusion. You had a convenient situation. Neither of those things is worth saving. That's not true. I love you. You don't even know me, I said, and the words felt like a revelation. You never asked about my life, my family, my dreams. You never wanted to know the real me. You just wanted a wife who'd play her role and not ask too many questions. That's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? How about sleeping with your coworker for 8 months while I paid your credit card bills? How about planning a future with her while lying to my face every night? I made a mistake. People make mistakes, Simone. You're supposed to forgive. No, I said firmly. I'm supposed to value myself enough to walk away. And that's what I'm doing. Please, just meet with me. One conversation. Face to face. No. I deserve a chance to explain. You deserve exactly what you're getting. Nothing. I took a breath. The divorce papers are clear. Sign them and this goes quickly and quietly. Fight them and I'll bury you in legal fees you can't afford. Your choice. You're being cruel. No, Brandon. I'm being fair. Maybe for the first time in our marriage, I'm being completely fair. Goodbye. I hung up and blocked his number. Patricia had been listening on speaker. That was brutal, she said quietly. Are you okay? I will be. I looked out the penthouse windows at the city lights below. I gave him 5 years. I gave him everything he wanted. And he threw it away for someone who'll leave him the minute she realizes he's broke. Yeah, I'll be okay. What about tomorrow? He'll probably try to find you at work, at the coffee shop you go to, everywhere. Let him try. I'm not Simone Barnes anymore. I'm Simone Montgomery. And it's time everyone knew it. That night, I drafted an email to the Montgomery Enterprises Board of Directors. It was time to step out of the shadows. Time to take my rightful place in the company without hiding. Time to stop pretending to be less than I was. Brandon had wanted me small, quiet, manageable. He was about to find out that I was none of those things. And the world was about to find out too. Tuesday morning arrived with crystal clear skies, as if the universe was signaling a fresh start. I dressed carefully for the day ahead. A maroon power suit with sharp lines, black heels, and the diamond Montgomery family crest pin my grandmother had given me on my 21st birthday. I'd never worn it before, always keeping it locked away to maintain my secret. Today it sat proudly on my lapel. Patricia met me in the lobby of the TechCore Solutions building at 9 a.m. sharp. We'd scheduled this meeting with Robert Sterling 2 days ago, before I'd even filed the divorce papers. Robert's assistant ushered us into his corner office, a space with impressive views and expensive furniture that still couldn't hide the nervous energy radiating from the man himself. He stood when we entered, tugging at his collar. "Miss Montgomery. Ms. Montgomery." He nodded to both of us. "Please sit." "Thank you for making time, Robert." I settled into the chair across from his desk, crossing my legs and observing him with the same clinical attention I'd use for any business meeting. "I assume you're aware that I filed for divorce yesterday." "I heard through the office grapevine, yes." "I'm sorry." "Don't be." "I'm not." I opened the leather folder Patricia handed me. "I'm here today wearing 2 hats. First, as a private citizen dealing with a personal matter. Second, as a representative of Montgomery Enterprises interested in your company's future." Robert leaned forward, confusion evident. "I'm not sure I follow. Let me be clear. My personal situation with Brandon should have no bearing on Montgomery Enterprises' business decisions. Your AI division is sound. Your projections are realistic. Your team is talented. These facts don't change because my marriage ended." "That's generous of you." "It's not generous, Robert. It's business. However." I pulled out a document and slid it across the desk. "I need to know that TechCore Solutions operates with integrity. Part of integrity is ensuring that employees who violate company policy face appropriate consequences." Robert picked up the document. It was a summary of workplace fraternization policy violations, compiled by Patricia's team over the past week. Every lunch meeting between Brandon and Natalie. Every time they disappeared together during work hours. Every policy they'd broken. "HR has been documenting this?" Robert asked. "They should have been. Whether they did or not, we have." Patricia tapped another folder. Time-stamped photos. Security footage from the parking garage. Hotel receipts. Everything you need to make an informed decision about whether these employees represent the values you want in your company. Robert's jaw tightened. "You want me to fire them?" "I want you to do what's right for your company," I corrected. If Brandon and Natalie were any other employees carrying on an inappropriate workplace relationship, creating a hostile work environment and violating multiple policies, what would you do? "I'd terminate them both." "Then that's your answer." I stood, smoothing my skirt. "Montgomery Enterprises will be sending over investment documents next week. $30 million staged over 3 years for your AI division. I expect that by the time those documents arrive, you'll have handled your internal personnel issues appropriately." "Understood." Robert stood as well, extending his hand. "And for what it's worth, I'm sorry about how this all happened. You deserve better." "I know," I said simply, shaking his hand. "That's why I'm taking it." Patricia and I left the building and climbed into the back of the town car waiting at the curb. My driver, Thomas, had been with the Montgomery family for 20 years. He knew better than to ask questions. "That went well," Patricia said once we were moving. "Very professional." "It needed to be. I'm not doing this out of spite. I'm doing this because actions have consequences." I checked my phone. 3 more voicemails from Brandon. I deleted them without listening. "What's next?" "Jerome wants to meet at 2 p.m. He has some news about Brandon's finances." "Interesting. What kind of news?" He wouldn't say over the phone. But he sounded pleased. We spent the early afternoon at Montgomery Enterprises headquarters, a gleaming tower in the financial district. I hadn't been there in person for months, preferring to work remotely while maintaining my charade. Walking through those doors again felt like coming home. My mother was waiting in my office. Catherine Montgomery, CEO and force of nature. At 65, she was still commanding, her silver hair styled perfectly, her navy dress impeccable. "Simone." She stood and embraced me. "Patricia told me everything." "I'm so sorry, sweetheart." "I'm okay, Mom." "Really? You don't have to be okay. You can be angry. You can be hurt. I'm both of those things. But I'm also handling it." I sat down at the desk I'd barely used, running my hand over the smooth wood surface. "I'm done hiding. I'm coming back full-time. No more working from home. No more pretending to be someone I'm not." Catherine studied me, her expression softening. "You gave up a lot to try to have a normal life with him." "I did. And look how that turned out." "So what now?" "Now I rebuild. I focus on the company. I focus on myself. And I make sure that everyone knows exactly who Simone Montgomery is." At 2 p.m., Jerome arrived with his briefcase and his characteristic efficiency. "I have interesting news," he said, settling into the chair across from my desk. "Brandon's finances are worse than we thought." "Explain." "He's not just broke. He's significantly in debt. Credit cards, personal loans, even a few payday loans. We're looking at about $75,000 in consumer debt." I felt my eyebrows rise. How? His salary should have covered his basic expenses. I paid for everything else. He's been living well beyond his means, trying to maintain the image of success. Jerome pulled out a spreadsheet. Fancy clothes. Expensive watch. That car he drives? Leased at a rate he can't actually afford. He's been robbing Peter to pay Paul for at least 2 years. Does Natalie know? Doubtful. He's been very good at hiding it. But here's the really interesting part. Jerome's eyes gleamed. He took out a personal loan 3 months ago. $40,000. Guess what he put as collateral? What? The house. Your house. Fury, hot and sudden, flooded through me. He forged my signature. Looks that way. I've already filed a fraud report with the bank. They're investigating. If it turns out he did forge your signature, that's a felony. Patricia whistled low. He's going to prison? Maybe. Depends on whether the prosecutor wants to pursue it. But at minimum, the loan is void and Brandon's credit is destroyed. Jerome handed me another document. Which brings me to my next point. The divorce settlement. He gets nothing per the prenup. Correct. But he's going to try to argue that he's entitled to spousal support. After all, you've been the primary breadwinner for 5 years. Let him try. That's what I figured you'd say. So I prepared a counteroffer. In exchange for him signing the divorce papers immediately with no contest, we'll agree not to pursue fraud charges for the forged loan documents. He walks away clean, legally speaking. And if he doesn't take the offer? Then we throw the book at him. Fraud charges. Public exposure of his affair and financial irresponsibility. We make his life very difficult. I considered this. Part of me wanted to pursue every possible charge, to make him suffer as much as the law allowed. But another part, the pragmatic business side, knew that the fastest way to be free was to give him an out. Give him 24 hours to decide, I said finally. If he signs, it's over. If he doesn't, we go to war. Understood. Jerome packed up his materials. One more thing. I had an interesting call from Natalie Green's attorney today. She lawyered up already? Apparently. She's worried about her job security, given the situation. Her lawyer wanted to know if you had any intention of pursuing legal action against her. For what? Sleeping with my husband is immoral, not illegal. That's what I told him. But he's nervous. Wants assurances that Montgomery Enterprises won't interfere with her career prospects. I smiled coldly. Tell him that Montgomery Enterprises takes no interest in the personal lives of employees at companies we're not affiliated with. What TechCore Solutions does with their personnel is entirely up to them. However, if any company we invest in maintains employees who've demonstrated poor judgment and ethical lapses, we might reconsider our investment. That's a beautiful non-answer, Patricia said admiringly. I learned from the best. I nodded to my mother, who smiled. The rest of the day passed in meetings and strategic planning. By 6 p.m. I was exhausted but also energized. For the first time in years I felt like myself again. No hiding. No pretending. Just Simone Montgomery in all her complex glory. My phone buzzed with a text from Robert Sterling. Both employees have been terminated effective immediately. Thank you for bringing this to our attention. Looking forward to our partnership. I showed the text to Patricia. It's done. How do you feel? Satisfied. Brandon spent years building his career. He thought he was on track for a VP position. And now, because he couldn't keep it in his pants and couldn't stay honest, it's all gone. What do you think he'll do? I don't know. And honestly, I don't care. That's his problem now. But even as I said it, I knew there would be fallout. Men like Brandon, men who'd built their entire identity on success and status, didn't take losses well. He'd lost his marriage, his job, and his financial security all in 48 hours. The question wasn't whether he'd lash out. The question was how and when and whether I needed to prepare for it. Wednesday morning, I woke up to 17 text messages from an unknown number. I knew immediately it was Brandon using a different phone. You destroyed my life. I lost my job because of you. How can you be so heartless? Natalie left me. She said this is all my fault. I have nothing. Nothing. Are you happy now? I blocked the number and got ready for my day. Patricia arrived at the penthouse at 8 a.m. with coffee and pastries. Brandon's lawyer called Jerome at 6 a.m., she said. He's signing the papers. No contest. It's over. Good. I bit into a croissant, barely tasting it. What about the fraud charges? Jerome's dropping them as promised. The bank is writing off the loan as uncollectible. Brandon's credit score is in the toilet, but he's not facing criminal charges. And Natalie? According to my sources at TechCore, she cleaned out her desk yesterday afternoon. No dramatic exit. She just left. Word is she's already applying for jobs in other cities. Smart move. Her reputation here is shot. I sipped my coffee looking out at the city. What about Brandon's financial situation? Patricia pulled out her tablet. It's bad. Without his salary, he can't make minimum payments on his credit cards. He's got maybe 2 months before the collection calls start. The car will get repossessed in about 6 weeks unless he can make the lease payments, which he can't. Where's he staying? His brother's place, from what we can tell. Small apartment. Not ideal for a man used to better. I should have felt more satisfaction. Instead, I just felt tired. This isn't who I wanted to be, Patricia. The woman who ruins her ex-husband. You didn't ruin him, Simone. He ruined himself. You just stopped enabling his terrible choices. Maybe she was right. But it still felt heavy. Over the next week, the divorce moved forward with bureaucratic efficiency. Papers were signed. Assets were divided, though there wasn't much to divide since everything was mine. Brandon got his old sedan, his clothes, and his personal items. Everything else stayed with me. I heard through various sources that Brandon was struggling. His brother's wife wasn't happy about the indefinite house guest. He couldn't find work because word had spread in the industry about why he'd been fired. His debt was mounting. He'd applied for unemployment but was fighting with the state about eligibility since he'd been terminated for cause. I tried not to think about it. I tried to focus on my work, on rebuilding my life, on the future instead of the past. But then Jerome called with news that changed everything. Simone, we have a problem. Brandon's filed for bankruptcy. So, that's his business. Normally, yes. But he's listed you as a creditor. He's claiming you owe him for contributions to the household during your marriage. That's absurd. The prenup clearly states. I know what it states. But in bankruptcy court, he can make these claims and it becomes public record. Your name, your involvement, all of it. And given that you never disclosed your full financial situation to him, he's arguing that the prenup was signed under false pretenses. I felt ice in my veins. He's trying to expose me. Not just expose. He's trying to extract money. He's claiming he's entitled to compensation for 5 years of being married to someone who lied about their identity. I never lied. I just didn't tell him everything. In bankruptcy court, they might see those as the same thing. And Simone, if this goes forward, it becomes a media circus. Your family, your wealth, all of it public. What do? We can fight it. Prove the prenup is valid. Prove he had no claim to your family assets. But it'll take time and it'll be messy. Or what? Or we settle. Give him enough money to drop the bankruptcy filing and sign a comprehensive NDA. He gets to rebuild his life. You get your privacy. Everything in me rebelled against this. He doesn't deserve a settlement. No, he doesn't. But sometimes we don't get what we deserve. Sometimes we get what we're willing to pay for. I thought about it for a long time. About Brandon, desperate and cornered. About the media attention if this went public. About the questions, the speculation, the invasion of privacy I'd spent 5 years trying to avoid. How much? I'm thinking $250,000. Enough to pay off his debts, give him a fresh start, and make it worth his while to stay quiet. $250,000. It was nothing to me financially. A rounding error in my quarterly dividends. But it felt like letting him win. I need to think about it. That night I talked to my mother. Catherine listened quietly as I explained the situation, then poured us both glasses of wine. What do you want to do, Simone? I want to fight. I want to prove he has no claim. I want to win. But winning might cost me more than losing. My privacy. My peace. The ability to move forward. Catherine nodded. Your great-grandfather once told me something I never forgot. He said that the smartest business people know when to fight and when to buy their way out of a problem. Fighting is expensive in money and in energy. Sometimes it's cheaper to just pay the toll and move on. So I should give him the money. I think you should do what allows you to sleep at night. If you need to fight this, fight it. If you need to end it and move on, end it. Either way, you have the family's full support. 2 days later, I called Jerome. Offer him $300,000. But I want more than an NDA. I want a statement that he lied in the bankruptcy filing. I want an apology in writing. And I want a clause that if he ever speaks publicly about me or my family, he owes us triple what we paid him. Done. I'll have it drafted by tomorrow. The negotiations took another week. Brandon's lawyer pushed for more money. Jerome held firm. Eventually, they settled at $350,000 in exchange for everything I'd asked for plus a permanent restraining order that kept Brandon from contacting me or coming within 500 feet of my properties. The day the papers were signed, I felt nothing. No relief, no anger, no sadness. Just a blank space where my marriage used to be. Patricia took me to dinner that night at a restaurant with too many forks and too much pretension. "It's over," she said, raising her glass. "You're free." Why doesn't it feel like freedom? Because you're grieving. Not for him, but for what you thought you had. For the dream of a normal life. Was that so wrong? To want something real? No, honey. It wasn't wrong. But maybe you were looking for real in the wrong place. Real isn't about hiding who you are. Real is about finding someone who loves all of you, including the parts you thought you had to hide. I drank my wine and thought about that. For 5 years, I'd hidden my wealth, my power, my real identity, thinking that was the only way to find genuine love. And I'd ended up with a man who'd loved neither the fake version nor the real one. He just loved what I could do for him. "I'm done hiding," I said finally. "No more pretending. No more playing small. From now on, anyone who wants to be in my life has to accept all of me." "Good," Patricia said. "Because the real you is spectacular." Later that night, alone in my penthouse, I opened the box I'd been avoiding. The one with photos from my wedding, mementos from the early days of my marriage, all the little pieces of a life that turned out to be built on sand. I looked at each photo, each memento, really looked at them. And then I put them away, sealed the box, and donated it to a storage facility. Not thrown away but archived. Part of my history but not part of my present. Tomorrow I'd wake up and be Simone Montgomery again, fully and completely. No more Simone Barnes. No more hiding. And if Brandon thought he could haunt me with bankruptcy filings and legal threats, he was about to learn that $350,000 was the cheapest I'd ever be. The price of my peace had been paid. Now I could finally move forward. I thought I was done with the whole mess. Brandon was out of my life, legally and completely. The divorce was final. The settlement was paid. I'd moved on to focusing on my work and my real life. Then Patricia called with unexpected news. "Natalie Green is suing TechCore Solutions for wrongful termination," she said. "And guess whose name came up in the filing? Mine." "Yep. She's claiming she was fired because of her relationship with Brandon, and that you used your financial influence to get her terminated. She wants damages, back pay, and a public apology." I closed my eyes, fighting back a headache. This is never going to end, is it? Actually, this might end it for good. Her lawsuit is baseless. We have documentation that she violated company policy. TechCore has a paper trail a mile long. She's going to lose. But it drags me back into this mess. Only if you let it. Jerome's already filed a motion to have you removed from the suit. You're not a TechCore employee. You have no authority over their hiring or firing decisions. The most you did was alert them to policy violations, which any concerned party could have done. Still, it bothered me. I'd paid Brandon to go away. I thought that was the end. But Natalie apparently hadn't gotten the message. Over the next few weeks, I watched from a distance as Natalie's lawsuit fell apart. TechCore's legal team was competent and thorough. They presented evidence of policy violations, inappropriate workplace behavior, and documented warnings that Natalie had ignored. But what really destroyed her case was something she hadn't anticipated. Other TechCore employees came forward with complaints about her behavior that had nothing to do with Brandon. Apparently, Natalie had a history of workplace drama. She'd started rumors about colleagues. She'd taken credit for other people's work. She'd used her looks and charm to manipulate managers into giving her preferential treatment. The picture that emerged was of someone who'd been a problem employee long before Brandon came into the picture. The affair was just the final straw. Patricia kept me updated on the proceedings. The judge isn't impressed with her case. TechCore's lawyer suggested they might countersue for legal fees. Natalie's lawyer is trying to negotiate a quiet dismissal. Will she take it? She doesn't have much choice. She can't afford to drag this out, and she's not going to win. In the end, Natalie dropped the lawsuit. No money changed hands. No apologies were issued. She simply withdrew her complaint and faded into obscurity. I heard through industry contacts that she'd moved to another city, changed her name slightly on her resume, and was trying to rebuild her career. Good luck to her, I thought. She'd learn eventually that actions have consequences. But the real turning point came about 6 weeks later, when I received an email from someone I didn't know. The subject line read, "Thank you." I almost deleted it as spam, but something made me open it. "Dear Ms. Montgomery, you don't know me, but I worked at TechCore Solutions until last year. I left because of a hostile work environment created by Natalie Green and Brandon Barnes. Natalie was my supervisor, and she made my life miserable because I wouldn't help her cover up her relationship with Brandon. When I heard that they'd both been fired, and that their behavior had finally been addressed, I felt like someone had lifted a weight off my chest. I've been in therapy for months dealing with the anxiety and depression that job caused me. I don't know what role you played in their termination, but I wanted to thank you. People like them get away with their behavior because no one with power ever holds them accountable. You did. And because of that, TechCore is apparently a better place to work now. Thank you for being willing to stand up even when it cost you personally. Sincerely, a former colleague." I read the email 3 times. Then I forwarded it to Patricia without comment. She called me immediately. "Did you see this?" I did. There were other victims. People we didn't even know about. Apparently. I stared out my office window at the city below. I thought I was just protecting myself. Getting revenge. Making sure they paid for what they did to me. And in doing that, you protected other people too. You stopped a pattern of behavior that was hurting multiple people. I don't feel heroic. Maybe not. But you did something good, even if that wasn't your intention. After that call, I thought a lot about consequences and responsibility. I'd been so focused on my own hurt, my own betrayal, that I hadn't considered the bigger picture. Brandon and Natalie hadn't just betrayed me. They'd created a toxic workplace environment that had driven at least one person to therapy. Their behavior had consequences beyond our personal drama. And by holding them accountable, I'd inadvertently helped people I'd never met. It was a strange feeling being accidentally heroic. A few weeks later, I got another piece of news. Robert Sterling called to update me on the TechCore investment. "I wanted you to know that we've completely overhauled our HR policies," he said. "Better reporting systems. Clearer consequences. More training on workplace relationships and ethical behavior." That's good to hear. It's because of what happened with Brandon and Natalie. We realized we'd been too lax, too willing to overlook problems because we didn't want to deal with them. Your willingness to hold us accountable made us better. After the call, I sat in my office thinking about how strange life was. I'd married Brandon thinking I was getting a partner. Instead, I'd gotten a cheater. But in the process of ending that relationship, I'd somehow made the world a tiny bit better. The company was stronger. The workplace was healthier. And I was free. Patricia came by that afternoon with champagne. "I think this calls for a celebration." "What are we celebrating?" "The fact that you not only survived this mess, you turned it into something positive. That takes strength." We toasted to that, to survival and strength and moving forward. And for the first time since the company party where my badge fell out, I felt genuinely happy. Not happy that my marriage had ended. Not happy about the pain and betrayal. But happy that I was still standing, still strong, still myself. Natalie was gone, building a new life somewhere else. Brandon was presumably doing the same, though I'd blocked all sources of information about him. I didn't want to know. Didn't need to know. They were my past. And I was ready to focus on my future. 3 months after the divorce was finalized, I agreed to do an interview with Business Today magazine. They'd been requesting one for years, but I'd always declined, preferring to stay out of the public eye. But now, with my decision to stop hiding, it felt like the right time. The interview took place in my office at Montgomery Enterprises. The reporter, a sharp woman named Jennifer, arrived with a photographer and a list of questions. "Let's start with the basics," Jennifer said, her recorder running. "You're one of the youngest board members at Montgomery Enterprises and you control a significant portion of the company's voting shares. But until recently, you've been almost invisible in the business world. Why?" "I valued privacy," I said carefully. "I wanted to be known for my work, not for my family name or wealth." "But something changed?" "Something did. I realized that hiding who I am wasn't serving me or anyone else. I was playing small when I should have been stepping into my full power." The interview continued, covering my work with Montgomery Enterprises, my vision for the company's future, and my plans to launch a new foundation supporting women in business. "The Montgomery Foundation for Women's Economic Empowerment," Jennifer read from her notes. "Can you tell me about that?" "It's something I'm passionate about. Too many women stay in bad situations, whether professional or personal, because they lack financial independence. This foundation will provide grants, business loans, and support services to help women build their own wealth and freedom. Is this inspired by personal experience? I paused, considering how much to share. Let's just say I understand what it's like to realize you have more power than you thought. And I want other women to have that realization without going through hardship first. The photographer took pictures throughout the interview. Me at my desk. Me looking out the window. Me in the conference room. All very professional, very polished. When the interview ended, Jennifer packed up her equipment. This is going to be a great piece. The magazine will be out in 2 weeks. Are you prepared for the attention? I am. But I wasn't, not really. When the magazine hit newsstands, my phone exploded. Interview requests from other publications. Invitations to speak at conferences. People from my past reaching out to reconnect. And, inevitably, a message from Brandon's lawyer. He wanted to renegotiate the NDA, claiming that my public profile had changed the terms of their agreement. Jerome shut that down immediately with a strongly worded letter reminding them that the NDA was ironclad and any attempt to violate it would result in legal action. But the most unexpected response came from Brandon himself. Not directly to me, but through a blog post he published on a personal website. Patricia found it first and called me immediately. You need to see this. I pulled up the blog on my computer and read, my anger rising with every word. Brandon had written a long, self-pitying piece about being married to a secret billionaire. He claimed I'd deceived him, led him on, made him think they were equals when really I was slumming it with a regular guy. He painted himself as a victim of my lies, a good man destroyed by a woman who'd never been honest about who she was. He didn't name me directly, but it was obvious who he was talking about. And worse, he'd posted photos from our wedding, from our marriage, making it clear to anyone who cared to look. He violated the NDA, Patricia said. We can sue. Get Jerome on it immediately. I want that blog taken down and I want him held accountable. Within hours, Jerome had filed an emergency motion. By the next day, the blog was gone, replaced by a notice that the content had been removed for legal violations. Brandon was facing financial penalties for breaching the NDA, penalties steep enough that whatever money we'd given him would be gone within months. But the damage was done. Some people had screenshotted his blog before it was removed. Rumors started circulating online. My name was connected to his. People started digging into my past, looking for the story behind the story. I hated it. Hated the invasion of privacy, the speculation, the gossip. But I also refused to hide. Instead, I gave another interview, this time to a respected business journalist who'd been covering my family's company for years. There's been some speculation about your personal life, he said delicately. Would you like to address it? Not in detail. But I will say this, I was married. That marriage ended. And I'm moving forward with my life. Anyone trying to profit off that story or invade my privacy will face legal consequences. Your ex-husband posted some claims online before the blog was removed. Any comment? My ex-husband signed a legally binding agreement. He violated that agreement. He's facing the consequences of that violation. Beyond that, I have nothing to say about him. Fair enough. Let's talk about the foundation instead. The second interview ran in a major financial newspaper. The tone was respectful, focused on my work rather than my personal drama. It set the narrative the way I wanted it set. Powerful woman moves forward after personal setback, builds something meaningful. The gossip didn't disappear completely, but it faded. Brandon tried to post again on social media, but each time Jerome's team had the content removed for NDA violations. Eventually Brandon stopped trying. The penalties were adding up, and his lawyer had apparently advised him that he was making things worse. Through it all, I kept working. I launched the foundation officially at a gala that raised $2 million in its first night. I appeared on panels about women in business. I gave talks at universities. I became the public face of Montgomery Enterprises in a way I never had been before. And slowly, carefully, I built a new identity. Not Simone Barnes, the quiet consultant wife. Not even just Simone Montgomery, the billionaire heir. But Simone Montgomery, the businesswoman, philanthropist, and advocate for women's economic empowerment. People started reaching out with their stories. Women who'd left bad relationships and rebuilt their lives. Women who'd started businesses with nothing. Women who'd found their power and their voice. Their stories inspired me. Reminded me why I was doing this. Why I'd stopped hiding. One night, about 6 months after the magazine interview, I was at a charity dinner when a woman approached me. She was about my age, elegantly dressed in a green gown, her confidence evident. "Miss Montgomery? I just wanted to thank you. Your foundation gave me a grant to start my business. I've been able to leave a bad situation and build something of my own. You literally changed my life." I felt tears prick my eyes. What kind of business? Financial consulting for women going through divorce. Helping them understand their assets, their rights, their options. I wish I'd had someone like that when I was going through my divorce. Now I can be that person for others. We talked for a few more minutes, and after she left, I stood there thinking about the ripple effects of everything that had happened. My pain had led to action. My action had helped others. Those others were helping more people. Brandon had tried to break me. Instead, he'd freed me to become who I was always meant to be. And that, I thought, was the best revenge of all. A year after the divorce, my life had settled into a new rhythm. I woke up each morning in my penthouse, went to the office at Montgomery Enterprises, spent my days making decisions that moved millions of dollars, and came home to a space that was completely mine. I'd redecorated the penthouse, making it truly reflect who I was. Bold colors on the walls. Art from African American artists. Comfortable furniture that invited you to stay a while. It was a home, not just a space. The foundation was thriving. We'd helped over 300 women in the past year with grants, loans, business training, and support services. We'd expanded from 1 city to 5. Patricia had joined the board, bringing her legal expertise to help women navigate divorces and business formations. I'd also reconnected with old friends, people I'd drifted away from during my marriage to Brandon. College roommates, childhood friends, family members I'd seen only at holidays. They'd all welcomed me back with open arms, and I realized how much I'd isolated myself trying to maintain my fake identity. "You seem happy," my mother said one Sunday afternoon. We were having lunch at her estate, sitting on the terrace overlooking the gardens. "I'm happy. For the first time in years I feel like myself." "No regrets about the marriage?" I thought about that. I regret marrying Brandon. I regret wasting 5 years on someone who didn't value me. But I don't regret what I've learned. About myself, about what I really want, about who I want to be. And what do you want? I want to keep building. The business. The foundation. Relationships that are real and honest. A life that doesn't require me to hide or play small. What about romance? Are you ready for that? I smiled. Maybe. Eventually. But it has to be different this time. It has to be someone who loves all of me, not just the parts one chooses to show them. As if the universe was listening, I met Gregory 2 weeks later at a fundraiser for childhood literacy. He was a fellow philanthropist, running his own foundation focused on education access. We ended up talking by the appetizer table, a conversation that started with small talk about the event and deepened into a real discussion about impact, purpose, and the responsibility that came with wealth. "Most people don't understand," Gregory said, gesturing with his champagne glass. "They think having money solves all your problems. But it actually creates different problems. How to use it responsibly. How to make real change. How to know if people want you or want your resources." "Exactly," I said, relieved to talk to someone who understood. I spent 5 years hiding who I was because I was afraid of that last part. Afraid that people would only want me for my money. How did that work out? Terribly. I married someone who didn't really know me, which meant he couldn't really love me. And when things fell apart, they fell apart completely. We talked for over an hour. He was easy to talk to, smart, funny, and refreshingly honest about his own mistakes and struggles. When the event ended, he asked for my number. "I'd like to take you to dinner," he said. "A real dinner where we can keep talking." I hesitated. It had only been a year. Was I ready? But then I thought about everything I'd learned, everything I'd survived. I was stronger now, smarter. I knew who I was and what I deserved. "I'd like that," I said. Our first date was at a quiet restaurant, nothing fancy or showy. Gregory picked me up himself, driving a sensible car and wearing a blue shirt that brought out his eyes. We talked about our work, our families, our hopes for the future. He didn't try to impress me. Didn't name drop or show off. Just was himself, completely and honestly. At the end of the night, he walked me to my door. "Can I see you again?" "Yes," I said. "But Gregory, I need to be clear about something. I'm not looking for anything casual. I've done casual and it doesn't work for me. If we're going to do this, we need to be honest with each other. Completely honest." "I can do that." "Can you?" "I'm learning." We saw each other regularly after that, but I took it slow. Really slow. I didn't introduce him to my family for 3 months. I didn't invite him to my home for even longer. I kept parts of myself separate, not out of fear but out of caution. Gregory was patient. He understood that I'd been hurt and that trust took time. He shared his own story, a marriage that ended badly 10 years ago, a long period of being alone, and finally getting to a place where he was ready to try again. "I'm not trying to rush you," he said one evening. We were walking through the botanical gardens enjoying the spring flowers. "But I want you to know that I'm serious about this. About you. I'm not going anywhere." "That's good to know. Because I'm serious too. I just need to take my time." "Take all the time you need." 6 months into our relationship, I told him the full story about Brandon. Everything. The secret identity. The affair. The divorce. The public fallout. All of it. Gregory listened without interrupting, his hand holding mine on the bench where we sat. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That must have been incredibly painful." "It was. And you survived it. More than survived. You turned it into something powerful." "I'm still learning how to do that. We're all still learning. But Simone, I want you to know something. What Brandon did, the way he treated you, that has nothing to do with your worth. You are valuable and worthy of love exactly as you are. All of you. The business executive, the philanthropist, the woman who was hurt, all of it." I felt tears on my cheeks and didn't try to hide them. "Thank you for saying that. I mean it. And whenever you're ready, I'd like to be part of your life. Really part of it. Meeting your family, being there for the good days and the hard ones, all of it. I think I'm ready for that." And I was. That Christmas, Gregory came to the Montgomery family gathering. My mother loved him immediately. Patricia grilled him thoroughly and gave her approval. My younger siblings welcomed him into the chaos of our family with open arms. Watching him fit so naturally into my real life, I realized this was what I'd been missing with Brandon. Integration. Acceptance. The ability to be fully myself without fear. "He's good for you," Patricia said, pulling me aside during dinner. "You're softer with him. More yourself." "I know. It's scary how easy it is." "Easy isn't bad. You've earned easy." As the year ended, I looked back at everything that had happened. The pain of betrayal. The strength it took to walk away. The work of rebuilding. The joy of rediscovering myself. I'd lost a marriage, but I'd gained so much more. My identity. My power. My peace. And maybe, just maybe, the possibility of real love with someone who saw me and valued me for exactly who I was. That was worth more than any revenge could ever be. 18 months after my divorce was finalized, I stood in a ballroom very much like the one where my badge had fallen and changed everything. But this time I wasn't there as someone's plus one hiding in the background. I was there as the guest of honor. The Montgomery Foundation was celebrating its first anniversary, and the gala was packed with donors, recipients, and supporters. The room glowed with soft lighting and elegant decorations. A string quartet played in the corner, the same kind of music that had been playing the night my world fell apart. But everything was different now. I wore a red gown, bold and unapologetic. My hair was styled naturally, no longer pressed or straightened to fit in. Gregory stood beside me in a charcoal suit, his hand resting lightly on my back, a steady presence. Patricia gave the opening speech, talking about the foundation's work and impact. In just 1 year, we've helped over 500 women start businesses, leave toxic situations and build financial independence. And we're just getting started. Then it was my turn to speak. I walked to the podium looking out at the crowd of faces. Some I knew. Many I didn't. But all were there because they believed in the work we were doing. A little over a year ago, I began. I was at a company party when something fell out of my purse. A badge. A simple piece of plastic with my real name on it. And in that moment, everything changed. I paused, gathering my thoughts. For 5 years I'd been hiding who I was. I thought that if I made myself smaller, quieter, more ordinary, I'd find genuine connection. What I found instead was betrayal. But I also found something else. I found myself. The room was silent, everyone listening. The foundation exists because I learned the hard way that financial power is freedom. It's the ability to walk away from situations that don't serve you. It's the capacity to build the life you want instead of settling for the life someone else thinks you should have. And it's the courage to be fully, completely yourself. Applause rippled through the room. So to every woman we've helped this year and to every woman we'll help in the years to come, I want you to know this. You are powerful. You are worthy. And you deserve a life that celebrates all of who you are, not just the parts that make other people comfortable. More applause, stronger this time. After the speech, people came up to talk to me, to share their stories, to thank me for the foundation's work. I listened to each one, genuinely present in a way I never could have been when I was hiding. Gregory stayed close, meeting people, charming my family, fitting into my world like he'd always been there. When there was a break in the crowd, he pulled me aside. "That was beautiful," he said. "I'm proud of you. Thank you for being here. There's nowhere else I'd rather be." Later in the evening, I stepped outside onto the terrace for a moment of quiet. The city spread out below, lights twinkling in the darkness. So much had changed since that night at Brandon's company party. So much growth and healing and transformation. I heard footsteps behind me and turned, expecting Gregory. Instead, I saw Brandon. He looked different. Older. Tired. His suit was off the rack, his shoes scuffed. The confident man I'd married was gone, replaced by someone diminished. "Simone," he said quietly, "I know I'm not supposed to be here. I know about the restraining order. But I saw the gala in the news and I needed to see you. I should have called security. Should have had him removed immediately. But something in his expression stopped me. "You have 2 minutes," I said coldly. "Then I'm calling the police. I just wanted to say I'm sorry. For everything. For the affair, for the lies, for trying to hurt you after the divorce. I was angry and scared and I lashed out. But you didn't deserve any of it." "No, I didn't. I see what you've built now. The foundation, the company, your life. And I realize I never really knew you at all. I married someone I thought I could control, someone who would make me feel important. I never saw who you really were." "No, you didn't." He looked down at his hands. "I've lost everything. My career, my reputation, my financial stability. But the worst part is knowing that I lost you. That I had something real and valuable and I threw it away for something meaningless. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to hear it. You deserved an apology. And because I needed to say it, even if it doesn't change anything." I studied him for a long moment, this man I'd once loved, once thought I'd spend my life with. I felt nothing but a distant pity. "Brandon, I forgive you. Not because you deserve it, but because carrying anger around isn't serving me anymore. But forgiving you doesn't mean I want you in my life. It just means I'm letting go of the hold this has on me. I understand. And Brandon? Stay away from me. Stay away from my family, my foundation, my work. This is the last conversation we'll ever have. If you violate the restraining order again, I will press charges. Am I clear?" "Yes." "Good. Now leave." He nodded and walked away, his shoulders slumped. I watched him go and felt the last piece of that chapter of my life close. Gregory appeared beside me a moment later. Was that him? Yes. He came to apologize. "How do you feel?" "Free." I turned to face Gregory, this good man who'd been patient with my healing, who'd celebrated my strength, who loved all of me. "Completely free." "Good. Because I have something I want to ask you." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. My heart started racing. "Simone Montgomery, I love you. All of you. The powerful businesswoman, the generous philanthropist, the woman who survived betrayal and turned it into something beautiful. I love your strength and your vulnerability. I love how you fight for what you believe in. And I would be honored if you'd marry me." He opened the box, revealing a stunning emerald ring. "I chose emerald because it's the color you were wearing the night we met. The color of growth and renewal and new beginnings." Tears streamed down my face as I looked at the ring, at Gregory, at the life we could build together. A life based on honesty and respect and genuine love. "Yes," I said. "Yes, I'll marry you." He slipped the ring on my finger and we kissed, the city lights twinkling around us like stars. When we finally pulled apart, I looked back through the ballroom windows at the gala still in full swing. Inside, women were networking, sharing stories, building connections. The foundation was growing. My family was celebrating. My real life, my true self, was thriving. I thought about the badge that had fallen that night, the moment that had cracked my world open. At the time, it had felt like a disaster. But now I could see it for what it really was, a gift. That badge falling had forced me to face the truth. To stop hiding. To reclaim my power and build a life that honored who I really was. Brandon had thought he knew me. He'd thought I was someone he could manage, someone content to play small. He'd had no idea who I really was. But now everyone knew. And more importantly, I knew. I was Simone Montgomery. Businesswoman. Philanthropist. Survivor. Fighter. And soon, bride to a man who loved me for all of it. The past was finally behind me. The future stretched out ahead, full of possibility and promise. And this time I was walking into it as my complete, unfiltered, powerful self. That was the happy ending I'd been searching for all along. 3 years later, I attended another gala. Gregory was by my side, my husband now, my partner in every sense of the word. The foundation had expanded to 15 cities and helped over 2,000 women build businesses and financial independence. I'd published a book about financial empowerment, started a podcast, become a sought-after speaker, all while running the Eastern Division of Montgomery Enterprises and maintaining real, honest relationships with the people I loved. Sometimes people asked me about my first marriage, about Brandon. I had a standard answer prepared. I learned a lot from that experience. About myself, about what I value, about what I need in a partner. And those lessons made me who I am today. I never mentioned his name. Never gave interviews about the details. He'd become irrelevant to my story, a footnote in a chapter I'd moved past. I heard through the grapevine that he'd moved to another state, remarried someone he met online, and was working a regular job in middle management. Good for him, I thought, and meant it. Everyone deserves a chance to rebuild, to grow, to be better. But his story was no longer connected to mine. As for Natalie, she'd disappeared entirely from my awareness. I hoped she'd learned from her mistakes and built a better life. But honestly, I didn't think about her at all. My life was too full of good things to waste energy on the past. That night at the gala, Gregory and I danced to the same kind of classical music that had been playing the night my badge fell. But this time I wasn't worried about hiding. I wasn't concerned about what people thought. I was just present, happy, completely myself. What are you thinking about? Gregory asked as we swayed together. About how everything worked out exactly as it was supposed to. Even the hard parts? Especially the hard parts. They made me who I am. He kissed my forehead. And who you are is spectacular. I smiled, looking around the ballroom at all the women who'd been helped by the foundation. All the lives changed, all the futures brightened. That badge falling had been the catalyst. But I was the one who'd done the work. Who'd chosen to step into my power instead of staying small. Who'd built something meaningful from pain and betrayal. Revenge, I'd learned, wasn't about destroying someone else. It was about building yourself up so strong, so complete, so genuinely happy that the person who tried to break you became irrelevant. That was the best revenge. And the best part? It didn't feel like revenge at all. It just felt like living my best life.